Hey everybody, welcome back to In the Right Direction. This is Mickey Roberts and I'm here with...
Stanley, Eli, and my cat is here again. No salmon today, but she's still here.
Yeah, and rather vocal, so if you hear her in the background. So today is episode 3, third episode we've done, and only the fourth time we've really hung out, but the fourth of many, many more. And today we are going to talk about... Oh, here's my coffee. Today we're going to talk about...
Travel. Travel being more, I hope, upbeat than phobia, which was the topic last time. And since Mickey has ceded to me the opening, I'm going to give it back to him for a change. Let him get started and tell us what he wants to tell us about traveling from his point of view.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I was excited when you brought up the idea of doing a travel episode. Firstly, because like we said before we were recording, that travel is a bit of a more lighthearted subject matter than phobia or fear that we did last week. And we wanted to do something a little bit fun and joyful. And obviously, Stanley, you've traveled all around in your life, and I'm excited to hear about what that was like before I was born, what traveling was like, what countries I've never been to was like, all of that. And for me, travel is just a fun, exciting thing because I'm on the front end of the places I want to go, the things I want to do, the experiences that I want to have around the world. I'm looking forward to them. Most of them I haven't had yet. So we're kind of talking about travel from two different sides of the mountain, which I'm excited about.
Well, to be more specific, would you give us any exact trip that you've had?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start it off. Let's see. The most fun travel experience that I've had in the last few years, I would say, is probably... There are two. One of them, I went to Iceland, and I'll start there. I went to Iceland with my best friend. His name's Grant. Shout out to Grant Crawford. Hey, if he ever hears this. But yeah, so we went to Iceland. It was really, really random. We both kind of wanted to go anywhere. I had just graduated from college. He was out a year prior. We just wanted to go and do something. So we looked up the cheapest flights we could find on an airline called WOW Airlines, which doesn't exist anymore. It went under, and I think I know why. We don't have any sponsors from WOW Airlines, so I can say that. But yeah, so we looked up tickets online, found $200 tickets, round trip. And we didn't care where we were going to go. We were just going to go wherever the cheapest tickets were. It happened to be Iceland, and the flight was 5 days away. So we just booked them and decided, I guess we're leaving in 5 days. We got on the planes, we packed a couple bags, one each, and flew to Iceland with absolutely zero plan. We didn't research anything. The only thing that we did was rent a car when we got there. We ended up staying for 10 days. It was the summer, so... if you know Iceland, the summer in Iceland, it never gets dark. I think the sun dipped below the mountain range for maybe 20 minutes every day around 3 a.m. It was fun for traveling because everything's in the daytime, but it was terrible for sleeping.
Yes.
And we couldn't afford hostels even because Iceland is so expensive. Getting there is really cheap, but once you're there, everything's $1 million.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
It's silly.
What year was this?
I want to say, I think 2017 we went, and we just traveled all around. We picked up hitchhikers on the first day. This French-Canadian couple, they were maybe 20, and we picked them up, and we had no plans, and they had no means of transportation, but they had a lot of plans. So we just decided, well, why don't we be your transportation, and you'll be our planners, and so we'll just go do whatever you want.
That's so neat. Yeah, great.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was really, really fun. What's the most reckless traveling trip that you've had in your life?
Let me start differently.
Okay.
I will tell you that not by no means the largest, but maybe the most significant travel that I ever did was when I was 8 years old. We moved from the south part of Dallas to a newer area, University Park. And it was significant for me because I got out of my parents' bedroom finally and, and and didn't have to sleep near them, which was a blessing, a huge blessing. So I have to chalk that up as maybe the most significant of all travels that I've ever done. And of course, it involved not just a new house, but a new school and new friends, and everything was new.
Was it hard leaving your old friends?
Well, I was so shy that I hardly had any friends.
Okay.
I had begun school in South Dallas and transferred to. It was actually the new place has its own school district called Highland Park School District, which was where I stayed through elementary, junior, and senior high school. So that was it was a big change.
Yeah, new lease on life.
Yeah,
At 8.
I would say maybe the biggest travel that I did in early years was when I got drafted. I told you, I think I mentioned it earlier in the episodes. I got drafted right out of college and got sent to Korea. This was in 1954. The fighting had stopped, but the country was just as I don't know what the word is, as undeveloped, put it nicely, as it could possibly have been. I got assigned to an infantry division, and I had the horrible idea of fantasy of marching up and down hills, barren hills, with a M1 rifle on my back. I did not do that because at a what they called a replacement depot, which was where you were sent for an assignment somewhere, I just screamed out to everybody I could scream to that I knew how to type. I figured even in Korea, barren as it was, they must have typewriters, and sure enough, they did. And I got assigned to the head of an infantry division, where I stayed for the next year and a half, with other guys who were also draftees, along with those who were regular Army lifetime people. So the experience of getting drafted, which was fearful in the beginning, turned out to be not that bad. It was odd. It was strange. Korea, there were no civilians. There was no place for them to live, and there were no dependents. And you just sort of lived in bunkers, and you went to a potbelly stove to get hot water to shave. You took showers kind of semi-outside, and that's how it was. But there was a great camaraderie there because we were all kind of young and stuck with each other. By the way, on the way over, I departed out of Tacoma near Seattle on obviously a troop ship. They are very unstabilized, to say the least. And Pacific Ocean, not only is it immense, it's also bumpy. And I was seasick instantly. Well, if you are a young draftee, you didn't sit on a deck chair. You had some kind of an assignment. And my assignment on the way over to Korea was to work in the nursery because there were dependents who were going on to Japan, wives and kids. And I had to go to the nursery where the kids played, but I was so seasick that all I did, fortunately, the mothers took me under their wings and felt sympathy for me. They said, "Look, why don't you just lie down on the floor?" Which is pretty much what I did all the way across the Pacific.
How long was the boat ride?
I don't know. It seemed endless. It really was rough. maybe we'll talk about Korea another time. So that's my a part of travel for me. How about you? Anyone more? Anything else you want to tell us?
Well, I before we switch to another story, I have a question about that. Do you think that your overall takeaway from having to go to Korea under the circumstances you went, is there something that changed you or like made you different after having had that travel experience?
I think I was glad ultimately to have had the experience of being in the Army. It was almost 2 years fully. Came back not through Seattle but through San Francisco, which was thrilling because, again, it was a bumpy ride across the Pacific. But I had never been to San Francisco, and we arrived at dawn on a beautiful February day. Everybody up on decks looking at the sunrise. It was marvelous. I had been overseas for months and months. I think I felt, I don't know, in a sense, a little bit of patriotism. I did my service. I was glad to have done it. The colonel who was in charge of the group where I had been living in Korea, Colonel Long, he was a very brash, youngish colonel. I think he had already stepped over a couple of other older lieutenant colonels to get a higher rank. He scared everybody, but he liked me. And curiously, when I got all the way back to Texas and was discharged, he wrote me a very kind letter saying how much he had appreciated the help that I had given him. And I sort of felt like he would have been happy if I had just re-upped and stayed in the Army.
Oh, wow.
Which I did not plan to do. So that was my bit of patriotism.
So this is maybe a little off the topic of travel, but certainly on the topic of patriotism, because I think about this a lot, and I've spoken to a lot of people who have served in the military or have done some sort of national service for their country, and I get the feeling that today people in my age range who haven't served, and certainly people younger who maybe haven't yet served but have grown up in this new America where things seem rather easy and comfortable for kids, there's not a whole lot of sense of patriotism or national pride that people in my generation have.
I think you're right. I think so. That's my feeling.
Do you think that that's something? Do you think it's a shame, or do you think the globalization and the technology and all that stuff has made it so we don't need to have that kind of patriotism?
Well, I'll share this with our audience. You just told me a little while ago that you're going to be a volunteer for a suicide hotline.
Yeah.
That is a patriotic act right there. So you have found a way, or you are going to find a way to pay your dues, a very useful way, very useful. And I think, I don't know, I think you're right. Younger people today are not subject to a draft. The draft ended after Vietnam, I believe. And the military today is looked upon without the same feeling that we had when I was drafted. And certainly not at all like what it was in World War II. My brother, being older, and all his friends went into the service. He went into the Air Force in the 40s. There was an immense surge of patriotism, but that was a world war. Everybody was united in wanting to defeat Germany and Japan. Today, that's not there. Is it better or worse? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know, because I think that there is something to be said for having gratitude for the lot that we've been given in our life as Americans. And, there's a lot of tiers and differences in individual lives and how people live here. But overall, I think that living in a country like America having the freedom to express your opinions without risking prison time or execution like in some other countries. I think there's a certain amount of national pride that any American should have, and a lot of people in my generation don't. There was a phrase that I heard one time that I think about a lot in the context of this. Hard times make hard men make soft times, soft times make soft men, and soft men make hard times.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. And I've always thought about that, and the idea that we're living in soft times right now, and so the product of soft times is soft people who haven't struggled, on a large scale sense, with the impending fear that World War II caused, or the Korean War or Vietnam or any of these wars where, but at the same time, because of technology and because of the internet and the distribution of information, we've come to learn a lot of the atrocities that our military has been responsible for, and a lot of other things that our government has been responsible for. So the criticism of our own country, I think, is important, but it can't come at the cost of our appreciation for being American,
I think that's really well said. Tell me more about your travels.
Yeah, so one of the main reasons I'm so interested in travel is along the same vein. I think it's important for people to see what life is like in another country, because you can't see the forest through the trees kind of idea. When you spend your whole life living in one place, it's hard to empathize with people who are struggling with things from another place that is just so foreign to you. I haven't gotten the opportunity to live in another country. I really want to. I want to go spend at least a year in another country and look at what America looks like from the outside. But like I said before, the only travel I've done has been mostly for fun. Right before COVID started in January of 2020, my girlfriend Sarah and my friend Grant, with whom I went to Iceland, we decided to go to Italy together for New Year's. We booked. It was I think we stayed for 12 days, and we went all around Italy. We went to Florence, Venice, Rome, Naples, Pompeii, which I guess is in Naples or right south of Naples. But yeah, we went all around Italy and basically just drank wine and ate pasta everywhere that we could. But
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it was really fun. It was silly. It was we had learned our lesson from Iceland. We made a lot more planning. Not me, I'm a terrible planner, but Grant and Sarah made most of the plans. We found all our Airbnbs, we organized the transportation and all that stuff, but it was an incredible experience, mainly because life is just so different over there. It was the overwhelming sense that I got was that people don't take life as seriously.
Yes, for sure.
In Europe as they do here. It's a lot more about enjoying the present moment.
And the food.
Oh, and the food. Oh my gosh.
I'd be interested to ask you, how did it work when you were a threesome?
Oh, it was amazing. I was worried about it at first because Grant at the time was single. He's in a relationship now, but he was single then, and Sarah and I have been together for 6.5 years. And at that point, I suppose, 4.5 years. But Grant has been my best friend since almost 8 years now, and he's become very close with Sarah. So we thought at first maybe it would be weird because it's like a couple and he'd feel like he was third wheeling. But I think most of the time it was me third wheeling. Like Sarah and Grant had a great time together.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, It was fun. I also have a really close, trusting relationship with Sarah and with Grant. So I love when they go off and have fun together, and I get to kind of just watch and enjoy this person that I love, spend time with this other person that I love. So getting to share Grant with Sarah and getting to share Sarah with Grant is just the best feeling for me.
I got to say, that speaks well for you, friend. I have been a third party to a gay couple. Sadly, they're both deceased now. They lived in Chicago. We were friends for years, and we traveled to Scandinavia together.
Oh, wow.
And later on, I traveled to St. Petersburg and Moscow with both of them.
Wow.
And it worked very well. But it was because we understood each other very well. There was a lot of room. I didn't interrupt what they did Occasionally went off on my own, but it was just a fortuitous meeting that I met one of them, the older one first. Lloyd, the younger one, came later, and it was just, I've always said that these were people who I never had a bad time with.
Yeah.
Never. I visited them a number of times in Chicago. They had a beautiful apartment on Lakeshore Drive, and we traveled together, and we traveled very well together. So
isn't it funny how you have to find, because I have friends that they're my favorite people in the world, but I could never travel with them. I could never go on a 3-week trip because we just live so differently. They would drive me nuts.
I understand that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a friend that you just could never?
Yes, several. Several.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing about Grant for me, is that he and I travel the same exact way. We never get on each other's nerves. We very much understand when one of us needs to be on their own or do their own thing. And he likes to plan for the most part. He likes to plan his things out, and I don't, so I let him do it the way he wants to do it. I'm very much a fly by the seat in my pants kind of traveler. I don't want to have any plan when I wake up in the day. Maybe a tour or something that I had to get a ticket for, but outside of that, I want to just meet a person and then let them take me on an adventure, you know.
But you haven't told us about Canada.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I've been I guess I forget that travel is also just, like you said, moving to a new part of Texas is travel. So I've been going to Canada. I'm a dual citizen. My dad was afraid that there might be another draft one day, so when I was born, he applied for my Canadian citizenship because he's Canadian. So I spent my whole childhood traveling to Canada, at least a couple times a year, to ski in the winter because my dad's side of the family operates a small ski mountain in Quebec, and then in the summer we would go to Whitefish, which is, I guess, a little bit north of Saint Sever, which is where the mountain is. And my grandmother lives there, and she lives on a 30-mile long lake that is, I think, 28 miles of it or so is crown land, so you can't build on it. And so when I was growing up, my dad always told me, like, this is heaven on earth, this place.
Yes.
It's undisturbed by people.
Yeah.
And so we went there all the time. So I was really lucky because I grew up right outside of New York City, and I've now lived in New York City for the last 10 years. So I grew up very much experiencing the urban lifestyle and like the pace of New York, but simultaneously had the opportunity regularly to go and be in the slow, peaceful pace of the wilderness, which is something my dad really values.
I'll bet. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm grateful for that. Going there and just waking up at 4 a.m. to go fishing before the sun came up, and spending the whole day doing nothing but making bonfires and building teepees out of driftwood and, all the stuff that kids don't really do anymore because everyone's got a phone in their pocket to distract them.
That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. Where's a place that you think, assuming that you could go, maybe travel's not in the cards as much anymore, but assuming that you could, a place that you never went to that you'd always had longed to go see?
I think I would like to go to Istanbul, probably to Egypt. Oddly enough, and I'm almost embarrassed to say as a Jew, I have had little desire to go to Israel, much as I respect what they do and have done. I think the trips... My mother came from Russia when she was very young. Her family and my father's family from Romania, as it happened, both of those families went to Texas to come into America. They did not go through New York. They went through Galveston. Both families went to Houston. My parents' families moved to Dallas, where my parents met and got married and then had children. But my mother had no recollection, really, of the first 7 or 8 years of her life in Minsk, which is now Belarus, part of Russia. A tough part, because it's led by an awful man. She had no recollection. I think she repressed those memories. But I have always, oddly enough, or maybe not oddly, had a great affinity for things Russian. I love Russian theater. I love Russian music. I love Russian literature. And I wanted very much to go to her country, and eventually I did. I have a close friend who happens to be an interpreter at the UN. He's Belgian by birth, but he is fluent in Russian. He had 2 apartments in St. Petersburg. And one year when he was going to be there, I went. And I stayed in apartment number 2, right next to his. And it was a marvelous week. I dragged along behind him or beside him because Pierre is fluent in Russian and I'm totally not. But we had a wonderful time. And then a couple of years later, I went back with the Chicago Friends on a tour to St. Petersburg and Moscow. I sort of felt that these were in honor of my mother and her family, who never went back.
The stories about your mom in her life in Russia, did you hear those stories from her, or did you learn of them after she died?
They were mostly from my aunt, Aunt Fanny, who was next in line to my mother was the eldest. Fanny somehow remembered things that my mother had repressed. So there were stories, and I've written some about that, which maybe we'll talk about some other day.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we're kind of getting to the edge of our time. We're trying to keep these down to around 30 minutes at the absolute most. So I think we're gonna wrap it up. I don't even want to stop. I'm so interested in what you're talking about. But we have 1,000 more episodes to do, so
I hope so.
We'll get to it. Yeah, absolutely.
Are you enjoying this, Mickey?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I love this. I love it.
Good.
I
Me
like hearing
too.
your stories.
Me too. And your stories as well.
Thank you. Well, if anyone ever gives me an opportunity to talk, I'm going to take it. I like to talk.
Okay. Well,
right.
Folks, whoever is listening, we will see you for episode 4.
Yeah.
Before long.
We'll see you then. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Bye everyone.